Hello, Corinne. Thank you so much for joining again on this podcast, Moments with Masters. And I'm super excited in 2024 to have you as the first guest on my show, Moments with Masters. And this was really important because of the challenges that we all face together and what we are going to discuss today and how you're going to share your experiences of kindness in leadership today in our conversation. So, welcome on Moments with Masters. You are the master of the day, Corinne.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be with you once again.
Absolutely fantastic, Corinne. And before we dive into our conversations, for the viewers who might be watching you and me talk for the first time, I would love to introduce you to our audience of Moments with Masters.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Corinne is a professional certified executive coach and author of Be Your Own Leadership Coach, Self-Coaching Strategies to Lead Your Way, and is passionate about supporting leaders to be their best selves. She has enjoyed a 30-plus year career in professional services with 23 years as a partner of Deloitte and brings a depth of understanding of the challenges which leaders face. With over 2,000 one-on-one coaching hours, Karen has a unique perspective of the intersection of coaching psychology and the lived leadership experience, which enhances her engagement with those she coaches. She acts in service to their success by drawing on the field of evidence-based coaching psychology obtained through her Master of Science in Coaching Psychology. Corinne has designed and implemented the coaching program for women partners of Deloitte, where since 2016, she coaches senior women leaders in support of having long lasting, sustainable careers. In a voluntary capacity, she coaches clients of not for profit, Dress for Success, and senior leaders as clients of social enterprise Bambuda Group. Karin is a passionate thought leader and is actively involved within the coaching communities of Asia Pacific. She is a partner faculty member of Deloitte University Asia Pacific, where she co-facilitates leadership programs for senior leaders within the region. She has also been a steering committee member of the Institute of Coaching Asia Pacific Roundtable Series and was an evaluator of the International Coaching Federation's PRISM Awards, which honored organizations globally for exceptional coaching programs. Based in Sydney, Australia, Karen is known for baking delicious honey cakes. Her love of sweet treats extends to her love of sharing interesting thought leadership. She has recently authored a book chapter on mental toughness published in the UK. And just as she hopes for you, Karen's aim is to have a positive leadership impact, which is long lasting in her absence. Karen, welcome to the show, Moments with Masters. And my first question to you, you've written about this construct of kindness in your book, Be Your Own Leadership Coach. And my first question to start today's conversation would be, what inspired you to focus on this?
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for the introduction. I was very inspired to write about kindness in leadership from a couple of perspectives. You mentioned I'd studied a Master of Science in Coaching Psychology, and within that degree, I studied the construct of kindness and was fascinated with how it could have such a positive impact on people, which also translate to leaders. We're all people. And it came to mind that I was inspired to write for this when I was actually leaving work one day. I was travelling home across the Sydney Harbour Bridge in my car in Sydney. I'd turned on the radio and I was listening to a radio show. And on the show, the hosts were interviewing a gentleman known as Hugh Van Cuylenberg. And Hugh is from the Resilience Project. He helps organisations such as schools and sports clubs and businesses deal with resilience. And during this conversation, he started to talk about the concept of doing good deeds and what can happen when we do nice things for people. And as I was listening, he started to talk about the impact that what happens to us personally when we undertake a good deed. The release of a hormone, oxytocin, from our brains, the feel-good hormone, which actually makes us have lots of positive benefits in relation to our outlook, in relation to how we feel and look at the world. And even when we witness other people undertaking acts of kindness, we too can have this release of this hormone. So it's quite a lovely operation. And I started to think about how I could actually engage myself in acts of kindness as a leader. He had a challenge for the radio show. He suggested that people phone in over the next couple of weeks until they reach 1,000 good deeds that people could celebrate during the radio show. And in fact, I listened to it day in and day out, and they reached more than 1,000, 1,767 good deeds to be precise. Now, I thought that that was way too many for myself to try and participate in. So I actually thought maybe I could do something where I have a year of leading kindly. And so I decided to start my own little project where every day for 365 days, I would try and embark on an act of kindness in my leadership capacity and see how I could impact people in a positive way and in my very small way, make this world a more positive place. So that's what inspired me to write it. How could I share this with people so that they could build their self-coaching strategies to incorporate this construct of kindness so that they too could ripple this out to themselves and to their teams and their communities, again, trying to help make this world a better place in the actions that they do.
Well, Corinne, that was brilliant. Understanding the inspiration behind your work helps us connect with the deeper motivations driving your exploration of kindness in leadership, and your personal connection to the subject matter undoubtedly contributes to the depth and like authenticity of the message you convey. And since I am an authentic influence coach, I look for authenticity in your thought leadership. And my next question would be like in your book, you emphasize the importance of kindness in leadership. How do you believe the concept of kindness actually aligns with the evolving challenges and dynamics of the modern business world?
I think it aligns more so than people first realize. Initially, when people think of kindness and business and kindness and leadership, they think that there's a bit of a chasm between the two. And it often takes some level of discussion to bring people to join it together, to marry the two terms. But when we break it down, what we're looking at, for instance, in leadership is a series of acts or behaviors or practices. It's between people. It's the way that we form relationships. It's the way that we role model ourselves and how we engage with people to try and inspire and motivate them to be the very best they can be. And when we think about how we build human relations, it's more about how we actually think of interacting with people. How can we do so in a way that brings kindness, that brings a way that people feel that they matter, that they are of significance, and that they have been heard and valued? So if we think of how we deal with business, those businesses that are much more successful are the ones where people are performing at their best. And for people to perform at their best, they need to feel that they matter. To make them feel they matter, we need to treat them with kindness. We need to engage with them with kindness and set environments which are kind environments to allow them to play to their strengths and be the best they can be, their authentic selves, as you speak of. And if people can feel that they can show up as themselves into an environment that is accepting of who they are, then they're more likely to perform in a much better way with improved performance, improved quality of work, more discretionary effort will come their way because they feel much more connected with the business, with the organization. So I think if we actually pull the two together and thread it through the way we operate our businesses, we'll actually find people are much more motivated to engage and continue in the business world.
Your answer actually reminded me. I was looking for something, and it actually reminded me of an insight that I shared on my LinkedIn yesterday and my social media. It's an insight, last night I had, some things you impart by explaining them, and some things you impart by demonstrating them. And leadership belongs to the second category, as you said. It's a
Yeah.
series of acts that you perform, and also to see how aligned it is with the true selves. And thank you, Corinne. It's fascinating to hear how kindness aligns with the evolving challenges of the modern business world, and your insights on this intersection are truly enlightening. My next question would be like, in a competitive and fast-paced work environment, some may argue that kindness could be perceived as a weakness. And how do you address this perception and make a compelling case for kindness as a strength in leadership?
Mm. Yeah, it's a really interesting point because I have heard people speak of kindness being something where people feel they always have to be nice, or maybe it's seen as being too soft. So does it take away from me being a leader because I want to be seen as strong and somebody who's out there who's role modeling and leading the way? But in fact, kindness as a construct requires you at times to make some tough decisions. It's not about just being nice. It's about being fair and treating people with respect and treating people in a way which encourages them to be able to feel safe in the environment which they're in. Yet if we have people whose behaviours are not actually advancing them, they're not improving in the way that they're performing, we sometimes need to give them some feedback, those tougher messages, to bring things to their attention. Perhaps it's a blind spot, and there's kindness in showing people something they otherwise wouldn't see. Perhaps it's giving them an understanding of the impact of their behaviours that they haven't noticed because nobody's told them. So kindness can sometimes be about giving some of those tough messages, but we want to be tough on the issues and kind to the people. Not so much tough on the people and really make it very personal to them. We want to actually let them understand the impact of their behaviours in a way where we, I guess, balance the care with the challenge which we want to bring to their attention. Kim Scott actually talks about this in the concept of radical candor. How do we actually move away from the tough love, where we're actually, giving people such tough performance that they're almost in shock and not really listening to the message? Or maybe we're sugarcoating messages and having too much empathy where people can't hear what the performance improvement message is. They're kind of lost in the fact that you sandwiched it in between telling me how great I am. So she moves us to a place of radical candor where we can be kind by bringing in care, showing people that we care, but also still challenging them to try and grow and develop and alter their behaviors so that they can have a more positive impact. So I think it's kindness can absolutely allow for leadership. And if we lead both from the head and the heart, then we're going to be better leaders. We actually want to bring more of us together and actually show our fuller selves so that we can actually understand with empathy how we lead and an understanding of people and their needs, but also with logic to make sure that we're doing so in a business capacity.
Yeah, I appreciate your perspective on addressing the perception of kindness as a weakness. What could be the opposite of this, Karen? Can you share an example where, where what's what is the reality, that business reality that we are creating when our culture speaks of kindness as a weakness in leadership?
I think if we do continue to view it that way and we don't turn our minds to it as being an opportunity to actually change the culture, then we're going to actually allow for behaviours that perhaps are unkind. And unkind behaviours might be how we set business objectives. If we're just setting a business objective without due attention to the capacity of our team to act, to the expertise which they might have, to the working hours in a day, to their ability to perform under pressure that we're creating, this becomes something less than kind. It becomes unkind in the way that we're putting additional stress and anxiety on team members, perhaps unnecessarily. So sometimes we want to think about how are we actually setting our teams up for success? How are we actually giving them sufficient information so that they can perform as their best, as their best selves, rather than just give them objectives without them really understanding and feeling connected with why they're trying to achieve what we're asking them to achieve. So I think it's making sure that we're doing things in a way that is broadening our mind, broadening our perspective to what's possible. And kindness in business isn't just in relation to people. There's lots of social issues, environmental issues. It's really expanding our minds to what's our social impact and how as a business can we consider what we're doing as a business and how kind is that in the way that we're operating? Is it sustainable? Are we engaging with people and contractors and suppliers who too are acting in a way which we think is ethical? And how are we bringing kindness into that thinking to enable us to have a better impact in the world in which we live?
I fully agree, Corinne. Your argument for kindness as a strength is truly compelling, and it provides valuable insights for today's leaders, navigating today's competitive work environment. So my next question, which would definitely connect with the, context that we are speaking on, And as technology continues to play a significant role in the workplace, how do you see kindness intersecting with the digital aspects of leadership, such as remote communication and virtual team management?
I think we have to have due care in relation to the impact of the digital world and kindness and our working world. In some ways, it's been very kind incorporating a digital world into our working world. It's allowed us to change the way we work. So obviously during the pandemic, it allowed us to facilitate a continuing economy whilst people were working from home under restrictions. But what's happened is sometimes the digital world has now become unkind. It's challenged us in terms of the boundaries that we're now creating or not creating in terms of the working hours and the working ways that we do things. In some ways, it's also challenged us in terms of the inclusivity or lack of inclusivity. Now that people are returning to the office, sometimes we're ending up with a proximity bias where people around us sitting in the office are having more opportunity, and it's becoming less kind for those people who might be working from home or remotely and aren't as present physically to be given opportunities. So it's challenging us in how we can be kind. We have to be much more mindful and intentional in how we engage more fully with our teams when we have people who are working remotely and digitally. We have to consider the boundaries that we put around our use of digital tools, such as emails and text messages and phone calls. What would we want to role model that shows kindness in the way we use technology? Should we be sending lots of emails to our team members late at night, even though we're feeling, well, I'm getting those off my plate and ticking my task list, but now I've put it on theirs and it can heighten their anxiety. So maybe it's not so kind that they're receiving it late at night, even though I only want them to action it the next morning. Are they going to have such a nice night's sleep seeing what's in store for them the next day? So I can enact acts of kindness by helping myself by using technology, but using tools to allow me to be more kind in the delivery of the message. I can schedule emails to arrive the next morning rather than in the middle of the night. I can use technology in a way that's inclusive of people. So making sure we use videos, for instance, to allow us to see each other and try and have some level of eye contact and rapport building as we get to know each other. I can be global in the way that I connect with people. You and I are in different locations at the moment, and we're using technology in a way that's with kindness, which is allowing us to connect and to have a great conversation, which we otherwise might not have had we not had use of a digital media. So I think there's a lot that happens with a digital technological world and business. We just need to think differently to ensure that we're still bringing the construct of kindness to be most effective in how we employ a digital presence in our working world. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not
Yeah,
hearing you.
and what could be the downside of this, and the negative side of this, if you don't consider these rapport building and bringing kindness into our digital presence and digital connections, and we lack empathy in as you said, I personally worked with people who leaders who are least bothered about what timings and what they're sending the emails, and it's
Yeah.
more of a, as you said, it's more of a ticking off the checklist, and the mails shoot at midnight, and the results are expected in the first hour of the next morning.
Mm.
So how does that heightened anxiety impact the business at an overall level?
Well, it does exactly that. It does heighten anxiety. And so when that occurs, we have more negative emotion. There's a contagion of emotion, whereas kindness is leading to a positive contagion. So it's doing the complete opposite. It's setting up people so that they feel inhibited in the way that they work. They feel at risk. They feel the possibility of a lack of psychological safety in the way that they're working because the boundaries haven't been set in a way that's conducive to teaming and to demonstrating respect of people's hours, both working hours and non-working hours. It's kind of having this continuum of access to people, which isn't really what we're engaged for in the workplace. We do try and integrate work and life. It's very hard to have work-life balance, but we do want to integrate other parts of our life. And if as a leader, I'm not role modeling how we can do that, how we can honor the value of family and honor the value of sporting time and social time and volunteering time outside of my working hours. If I'm not seeing that through my leaders, then the followership in relation to those leaders might start to dwindle. I might start to become disengaged and dispirited. and lacking some level of connection with that leader because it's not really role modeling the way I would like to be in an organization. And as a result, the quality of my work might start to drop. I might lose my attention to detail. I might start to have less days where I'm actually working with my team and more days where I'm isolating myself. In fact, I might even leave and find a different environment. So I think we still have to come back to that premise that small acts of kindness can make a difference. So if you're a leader and you're struggling to understand the construct of kindness and wondering, that's really quite far away from where I sit in terms of leadership, start small. Start with small daily acts because daily acts matter. And it could be as small as actually acknowledging a team member, actually saying hello to them and using their name, smiling at them when you walk past them, nodding at them in the elevator rather than ignoring them. So the smallest of acts can actually have a very high pro-social impact. And what's more so is these acts can have an even bigger impact for people who you don't know. So if you go and purchase your coffee in the morning or your tea in the morning and you say thank you to the person who's made it for you, even if you don't know them, that act of gratitude, that act of kindness can have a much higher impact from a pro-social point of view in terms of the ripple effect of the positive contagion with someone who you don't know, even more so than someone who you do know. So start small is what I'd recommend until you become more comfortable with it. But challenge yourself as a leader to think, what am I role modeling and how can I try and role model more acts of kindness so that people also are being kind to me? And how do I also act in a way which is have self-kindness? What am I doing to allow myself perhaps to have better boundaries so I'm not sending emails at midnight? How am I closing off my working day and be kinder to myself so that my energy can be restored at an earlier time of the day rather than find myself fatigued and depleted and always on?
Corinne, I would love to listen a little more on kindness upon self, kindness to self,
Yeah.
which I feel is more important for business leaders. I would love to listen your insights on how can leaders start understanding the impact of kindness on self.
Well, I think it's really important that we have to start with ourselves as leaders. The old expression, when the oxygen mask drops, put yours on first and then help other people. Now, if we're not helping ourselves first to improve our well-being, to have a sustainable working life where we can bring our best self to work, how can we possibly expect that we're role modeling something that's inspiring and motivating and has a positive impact to the people around us? So if I can actually start with focusing on me, lead myself, think about my values, use my strengths, and consider my purpose, and then start to play with what's helping me and what's hindering me so that I can be of my best self, then I'm more likely to be able to lead as my best self and have that ripple to other people. So managing my time, managing my energy, building my self-awareness, firstly by self-reflection and stopping to notice and to understand what I'm doing, the impact that I'm having, but then also seeking feedback from others to broaden out my perspective so I can have more insights, more knowledge, more understanding of the impact I'm having. These are all kind acts to myself to allow myself to grow and develop, to allow myself to see more, as they say, to step off the dance floor onto the balcony above and to see more of me below and how I'm acting out. And that's going to actually improve my well-being considerably. So I want to have a life where I thrive rather than just survive. And acts of kindness towards myself are more likely to allow me to thrive and enjoy my life and to bring my best self than if I simply just get through day by day and survive.
Fantastic. It's about sustainability. It's not about
Yeah.
a short-term gain. It's about a long-term perspective. And if somebody is focused to create, if someone talks about returns and returns always sustainable returns and sustainable results are always created in the long term. And it depends upon exactly again the small acts of kindness, which start with your own self as the owner of the business and business leaders and navigating the digital aspects of leadership is crucial in today's work landscape. And your thoughts, Karen, on how kindness intersects with remote communication and virtual team management definitely offer valuable guidance for leaders adapting to these changes. But my next question would be, again on this word inclusivity that we spoke about, and like considering the diverse and multicultural nature of today's workforce, how can leaders cultivate kindness in a way that resonates across different cultural contexts and backgrounds?
It takes some thought. So
Mm.
for a lot of people, when we start to think about that, we think, well, do I know enough about your culture and your background to be able to include you in a way where you will feel most comfortable? And in many cases, we'll say, no, I don't. I don't really understand, what might be happening in your household or what are the practices that you live by. So the way to be kind is to actually be curious, to actually inquire of others, to start to learn more about what are their needs, what are their experiences, what is their culture and their background. And so that if you're asking people to share more with you about them, then you're more likely to learn more from them. So the kindness comes in not making assumptions and holding biases about, well, I'd assume that they won't do that because of, actually asking questions. What are your needs in terms of you to allow you to have great success? Or what do I need to know to be in support of you to allow you to have great success in your role? And you can do that by creating psychological safety. So we want to allow people to feel that it's safe to learn, safe to be included, safe to actually challenge the status quo. And in doing so, if we're actually setting up a situation where they feel that there's psychological safety, there isn't a risk of humiliation or embarrassment because they're perceived as being different, then they're much more inclined to bring themselves into it. So I always ask leaders to get a piece of paper and write down the name of their team members and start to think about, what do I know of their strengths? Write those down. What do I know of their background, their family composition, their interests outside of work? What do I know about their aspirations? And sometimes I'll have a page that's given back to me and there's lots of blank spots. And that's an opportunity to be curious and to get to know your team more so. But I also ask the leaders to have a look at that team composition and look at it in terms of diversity. Do I notice that everyone in that team is very similar to me? Now, if that's the case, I haven't created a very diverse team. I've recruited for people to be just like me because it's easy if they're just like me. In fact, what I've done in recruiting in that way is not make it easy at all. I've lost opportunity for diversity of thought. I've lost opportunity for diversity of experience and backgrounds, for innovation and learning, for improved performance and profitability. So what I really want to do is, when I notice that my team is not diverse, is actually engage in some diversity of thought as to how I can change that. How can I change my team composition to allow us to move away from potentially what could be groupthink, where we all just follow each other because it just seems to be the way we do things?
Yeah, I was going through some studies, and I found just about a couple of days ago, Corinne, that genuine curiosity studies have proved that genuine curiosity builds authentic connections more
Mm.
than the conventional repo building
Yeah.
strategies or tactics. Genuine curiosity is directly connected to kindness and love, and which itself is enough to build rapport,
Yes.
to be connected heart to heart with anybody in this world. And your consideration of cultural diversity and kindness in leadership is truly commendable, and understanding how to cultivate kindness in a way that represents different cultural contexts is, I believe,
Mm.
most essential for fostering an inclusive workplace. So,
And it's
yeah.
also just furthering your
Mm,
comment about curiosity, it's also taking it further towards your listening skills, because we
yes,
want to make sure that we're listening to understand. We're not just
yes,
listening to hear something, but we're actually
yes,
being present and
yes.
listening to understand, so that curiosity is bubbling up and we can stop and pause and really sit in contemplation with those individuals to think, what have I learnt from that interaction with that individual? What's something now that I'm taking away that I didn't otherwise know? And it could be that they offer a different perspective. It could be they offer the same perspective and we're in agreement, but we've at least had an opportunity to test that with each other. So I think if we're curious and we're listening to understand, then we're much more likely to advance ourselves in a kind way. because we're making space for people to feel that they can be included.
Yes, this reminded me of me last night. I was talking to Steve Hardison, who's known as the ultimate coach, and he's my coach. So I was talking to him, and he said, Ranjan, a conversation is an opportunity to plant a seed for the future. And you know, people step on that gold, and they forget that that is where the gold is. And
Yes.
a genuine curious conversation is a world's best opportunity to plant a seed, to co-create a future for both of you, whoever are in the conversation.
Absolutely. It becomes
Yeah.
generative, and the collaboration within the conversation allows for some expansive exploration. Whereas if we're just allowing people to sit in a debate stance where they're kind of going back and forward, or kind of, I'll tell you this, you tell me this, and maybe we move to some kind of reflective conversation where I reflect what you've told me, but we're not actually yet in a dialogue. Once we move to that space where you do have those new green shoots coming through, we are allowing for some growth. We are allowing for something to generate together.
Absolutely true. And Karen, in your view, uh, how can organizations actively promote a culture of kindness in leadership? And what role does leadership development play in shaping a collective mindset towards kindness within a company?
I think there's a big role for the culture and the leadership culture to play in kindness in a company. If we don't actually attend to it and don't realize that kindness is allowing people to feel that they matter, and it's very important that people feel that they matter and not just that they belong. So if I have a group of employees and I've said, well, great, you all belong, you're in my team, you're in that team, you've got a security badge, you can get into the building, you've got a laptop so you can see you belong here, you're part of our team, you belong. They might feel very lonely and isolated within that team that they belong to because they don't yet feel like they matter. So if we can use kindness to show people that they matter, that they're of value, that they're of significance, that we have dependence on them and we rely on them to perform particular tasks, and we're interested in their expertise, and we're aware of who they are and what they stand for, that's going to advance the organisation substantially. That's going to allow people to really feel that they have a place and a role to perform. If leaders are trying to accelerate an organisation, the organisation is going to be moved by the people within it. And so we need to consider very much what are we doing and how are we acting with the people within it to help them step forward with us. They're going to help us propel the organisation forward. We won't do it alone just because we've badged ourselves as a leader. We need to be working together and collaborating with the people within our organisation to step forward. So the issue of kindness and making people feel that they matter and that they actually have a level of inclusivity and diversity allowed within an organisation is something that comes from bringing it to leaders' attention, from drawing on training programs to help them understand the impact that they have, both the consequences and the unintended consequences of not thinking, of perhaps losing their emotional control, of perhaps poor planning, or not including people in different opportunities. Once leaders have an understanding of what bad leadership looks like, we can turn to the examples of what good, great, and awesome leadership can look like. So it can help them by giving them examples, role modeling, giving them stories, actually educating them to better understand their impact so that they can have a long-standing positive impact which is enduring in their absence.
Well, maintaining a balance, between kindness and the drive for results, it's a delicate challenge, Karen, and definitely your insights into striking that balance. It provides a thoughtful perspective on the new leaders and how they can cultivate a positive and a productive work environment. So my next question would be like, what are some ways of kindness, you know in some ways kindness can be incorporated into leadership, and can you share a few personal experiences where incorporating kindness in leadership has resulted in positive outcomes for both business leaders and their teams, and maybe the business as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing is actually considering your workforce and trying to bring forward positions which allow them to have support where necessary, to allow them to be of their best. So I can think of an example just in relation to executive coaching and working in an organization. When people are struggling to be of their best or struggling with challenges or perhaps wanting to have further development, you don't always go to a coach if you're struggling. It could be that you're trying to accelerate your development. Having an experienced executive coach on hand to be in support of you, to help you explore and discover options for your success, is an act of kindness. It's an act showing of support to the individuals to demonstrate that you'd like for them to be able to have growth and improvement and opportunity to also advance themselves within an organisation. So that in itself would be a small act of kindness. Allocating people to different opportunities. So when we're looking at who is in our team and recognizing what skills and strengths people have and actually listening to what their hopes and dreams are within their roles and their hopes for promotion and advancement in organizations. Kindness will come if we actually are cognizant of that and we can try and work with them to have career objectives and long-standing opportunities within organizations to have that level of advancement. So they would be quite simple things to have. Flexibility in the workplace can be very helpful and show acts of kindness because it's demonstrating trust. Through trust, I can demonstrate kindness. If I trust my employees to utilize flexibility in a way which allows them to also meet their needs, I'm using a policy, which can be a kind policy, to allow them to pick up their children after school and then return and do some work, or maybe attend to a doctor's appointment in the middle of a working day. But I trust that they'll use their flexibility with their hours to complete the goals which have been assigned to them without over creating a whole lot of administration around what needs to be done. So there's many policies that can be put in place in support of the workforce which demonstrate kindness. It's making sure that we communicate them in a way with quality communication so people are aware of what's the common purpose of the organisation, what are the values of the organisation, and how are we actually trying to honour those values, and how are we bringing you forward with value-based goals to try and assist you with your careers so that you too can have an outcome that's positive for you in your career.
Well, that was a fantastic conversation, Corinne, and promoting a culture of kindness within organizations is crucial. And your thoughts on how organizations can actively foster this culture and the role of leadership development in shaping a collective mindset. It's absolutely thought-provoking. And I would, anything else you would want to add about your book and how this is going to help the business leaders and the business world today? It's open to you.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I'm excited to say that I'll be coming to India next week and I'll be working with Pan Macmillan Publishing in India to be bringing my book to the attention of readers within India. So hopefully they'll be able to access a copy and look at the chapter, particularly on kindness in leadership. I do think that there's opportunity for people to build their self-coaching muscles around this. It's not something that necessarily is automatically set in individuals. It does take some level of reflection and noticing and building with some self-coaching exercises to further their skills so that they can feel more equipped to respond to this and to have that positive impact that we speak of. So I'm hopeful that people will turn their minds to the construct of kindness and that by them acting with that, they'll have the positive ripple effect that we're hopeful of to help make this world a better place.
Most definitely, Corinne. And handling tough decisions with empathy can be a delicate task for leaders. And your insights into navigating difficult situations while maintaining kindness and decisiveness are valuable for leaders facing challenging scenarios. And be your own leadership coach is definitely going to be crucial, important for all the business leaders of today's competitive world, and for the results they want to create in business and in their personal leadership development and for their teams as well. And I would definitely love to have a copy of Be Your Own Leadership Coach as early as possible. And welcome to India. India is looking forward to reading your book and learning from your book. Thank you so much for being a guest on this show, Moments with Masters, and for being a brilliant and insightful Master of the Day, Corinne.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, and namaste from India.
Thank you. Now,